Welcome back, everyone. Welcome, dear governors and friends, to the 2023 Board of Governors' second plenary. First on our agenda, we would like to finish our inauguration. I invite Ms. Dafna Meitar-Nechmad and Professor Ariel Porat and the President of the Australian Friends of Tel Aviv University, Ms. Rosie Potasnik, to take their place at the front of the stage to greet the new governor. I invite Mr. Roger Mendelsohn from Australia. Please come to the stage. Congratulations. Thank you all and welcome to the Tel Aviv University Board of Governors once again. We wish you the best of luck. Now for our second item on the agenda today, our committee reports and resolutions. This morning we will not be hearing from the Equity and Diversity Committee because in addition to a meeting of the committee, yesterday we held a special session allowing governors and guests to hear moving stories from students and staff from all sectors of Israeli society in 3 parallel sessions. We hope that you will be inspired to join this committee moving forward, as you are now aware of the great impact it has on our students personally and on campus. I would now like to invite your chairwoman, Ms. Dafna Meitar-Nechmad, to present the committee resolutions. Dafna?
Thank you, Mika. Welcome, everyone. Our Board of Governors committees are the heart of being part of the Tel Aviv University family, and we are happy to see them grow. These committees are your opportunity to witness, learn, and discuss solutions for big picture problems, as well as positively influence daily challenges. We will have a brief presentation of our committee's reports on the meetings convened this week. We'll begin with our steering committee announcement regarding the 2024 Board of Governors meeting, which will take place Tuesday, May 29th to Sunday, June 2nd, not 12, not too much, 2024. Of course, you'll get to save the date, and I'm sure you are looking forward to next year Board of Governors of Tel Aviv University. I would like to invite Rose Kushinsky, co-chair of the Campus Committee, to give the report.
Hello, everyone. It's my privilege to have been asked to be a co-chair on the very important Campus Maintenance and Development Committee, and it was a pleasure to take part in that meeting the other day. I'd just like to say that we've got a whole lot of new members in that committee, and we have representation of a great deal of skills and experience, and even a lot about the history of the earliest plans for the actual campus, the physical campus, and hopefully they are people who will help us not to reinvent the wheels and keep us on the straight and narrow. There are people with financial skills and development skills apart from the technical skills that we need. Now, we were very impressed with the development of the campus as it's happening at the moment. There are buildings that are in either in building stage or final completion, and these include the Sylvan Sport Institute building, the Buchmann Faculty of Law building, underground parking lot, very useful, the Miriam and Moshe Schuster building for the Centre of Traumatic Stress and Resilience, the Azrieli School of Architecture, and the completion of the Lockie Graduate Centre, and the Samueli Engineering Building, Broadcom. We are particularly, the committee was particularly interested in the university finding, carrying out some efforts to find more funding to be able to maintain the buildings and to be able to upgrade existing buildings so that we can repurpose buildings rather than having to think about knocking them down to provide something which is more suited to 21st century use. And there are some successful examples of asking donors to renovate, for example, the Dundavid building and the Azrieli School of Architecture building and the Sports Centre, which have substantial endowment funds for that purpose. The university has published the master plan, which has a very impressive vision for the future development of the campus. And if you can find that big fat book lying around somewhere, do take it and read it. It's not a 5-year plan. It looks really like a plan for 50 years, and it's likely that that's going to have to maybe change a little as climate, population, approaches to education and so on change in the next few decades. But the master plan also has a great vision for the need of people to come through public transportation, linking the Green Line light rail, as well as an escalator and elevator connecting the railway station. And at the same time, maintaining the campus green areas and plazas. There are plans to be completed by 2025 of 2 new dormitory buildings on the eastern side of the campus, adding 1,000 or so much needed new beds for students. And last but not least, the university has a big plan about reducing its carbon footprint. There is a field of solar panels in the Negev getting ready to be able to fund the reduction in the carbon footprint, and a number of initiatives to move to some electricity generation by solar panels, for example, over some car parks and on top of buildings. And that's to be applauded, and it's something that we'll need over the next few years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rose. I would like to invite Ms. Linda Streit, co-chair of the Student Affairs Committee, to give the report.
Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to see you all. And as always, the student committee is the best committee ever. And you have to come and listen to the stories and hear what wonderful students and staff we have this year. And it's a great pleasure to be working with Dean Dorit Neumann. So I'm coming over here. So we have a few resolutions, and the very first one is that the committee welcomes Dean Neumann in her new role and congratulates her on the superlative way, Magia la, she deserves it, in which she is managing the Student Success Center, and it wishes her every success in achieving her goals of reaching out to all students to assist them during their academic careers. And note, we changed it from the Student Services Center to the Student Success Center, and that's what we're all about, success. And this year we talked about how to reduce the dropout and increase retention. So the committee appreciates how the Student Success Center is focusing on increasing student retention and improving students' well-being and grade scores during their studies. And it encourages the university to increase financial and staff support for these vital services that they give. Every student has a listening ear, and they're not alone. And once they know that, and they know that somebody believes in them, makes a big difference. And the committee highly recommends the expansion of the continuing services to the faculties of management and law, because those are the only two faculties that don't have access to all these services at the moment. And the committee recognizes the importance of generating mechanisms for measuring and controlling intervention programs to further increase their efficiency and effectiveness for student retention. In other words, we are evaluating, are we doing the right thing? It's not enough just to have a program, you have to be able to do checks and balances and check yourself. And the committee recommends increasing the scope of academic mentoring tailored to the faculties. Mentoring is a wonderful way of those who have the experience helping others, and you feel that you're on your path moving together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. I would like to invite my Mr. Tim Schlendwen, co-chair of the Finance Committee, to give the report.
There's a price to be paid for that outburst. Thank you, Chair Meitar-Nechmad, and hi to all. The Finance Committee met in person on Tuesday. Great to be in person. The meeting was co-chaired by Svi Ziv and myself. Svi could not be here today. Our CFO, Neri Azogi, took us through, as usual, excellent comprehensive reports that included academic outputs, financial statements and budget analysis for both the last couple of fiscal years as well as looking into this year, and the university budget for the year ahead of us. We don't need a finance committee when you've got two things: an excellent staff, and we do have an excellent staff here. They're dedicated, hardworking individuals, they're professionals, and please give them a hand. We also have excellent outside auditors who count everything. And so the role that I see for the Finance Committee is, yes, where's the money coming from simply, and where's it going? But I think more importantly is to sort of discuss the context within which the university is operating, the goals and objectives that President Perot has set forward. Can you see a correlation? Does it fit together? Does it make sense? And I think it does all the way through. And then the context is the challenges. We've all gone through the pandemic. God willing, it's mostly gone, but not all yet, I suspect. But now we've got a macroeconomic impact of Ukraine. We've got inflation that we see everywhere. Maybe it's coming down, but it's still with us. We see the financial impact from the crisis that we've had on our own investment portfolio. We're climbing back out of that, but it's still a factor. We've seen moderation in the growth rate of student numbers, and it's just not for us, it's statewide or countrywide. On the good side, we've seen an increase in research volume, which is important, obviously. We continued, as we've seen here, campus physical development, which is outstanding, and thanks to all of you, increased fundraising in general. And so I extend my appreciation to all that you have done. We've only got one order of business, which are the resolutions that you see here. And the last one, though, we had the two kind of ready to go before the meeting, and the last one was added at the end. What you can see as a theme there is the need for revenue, pure and simple. I think most of you know, and certainly the Finance Committee members know, that the significant majority of what our university runs on comes from the state. And the state obviously has its challenge, not the least of which we all know about in terms of civil issues, but financial issues, impacted by inflation, impacted by its many demands to meet the needs of society. So where does that leave us, I think, is a simple proposition. At the margin, the giving of all of you makes the difference without a doubt. Without that piece at the top of the pile there, if you will, we couldn't do the things that we're doing, the things that you've heard about here today, the things that you've seen all week. So as much as you've already done, let me at least be one to say, let's do more. And on we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. We'd like to invite Mr. Neri Azugi, Deputy Director General for Finance, to give the Funds and Trust Committee report.
Okay, good afternoon. The Fund and Trust Committee met on May 16. The meeting was co-chaired by Mr. Edwin Wolfson and Mr. David Granot, who also serves as chairman of the Investment Committee. We presented the investment portfolio, which amounted to 3 billion shekels. We discussed the investment policy and the current investment allocation, including the detailed portfolio structure. Last year, we faced volatility and the crisis in the financial markets following the macroeconomic changes and the war in Ukraine, and we managed to end the year with a nominal loss of only 3.2%. This year looks better, but still ongoing uncertainty. The nominal yield since the beginning of the year is approaching 6%, but we still have to deal with a high inflation rate. The Investment Committee carefully navigates the investment while taking advantage of opportunities in order to ensure the stability of the portfolio. So these are our resolution. The Fund and Trust Committee noted the investment policy 222 and 223. The Fund and Trust Committee recommends that the Executive Council to its investment subcommittee together with the Investment Committee will examine the possibility of investing in the university's real estate projects, such as the dormitory projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Neri. I would like to propose a motion in favor of accepting the committee's resolutions. Would someone like to move the motion? Second? Thank you. The 2023 Board of Governors Committee resolutions are ratified.
Thank you, Dafna, and everyone. Wow, people really love that Finance Committee, huh? Yeah, Tim came up here like Bruce Springsteen, like finance at TAU. Woo! All right, here we go. Thank you, Dafna. I invite Ms. Danielle Zilber, Chairperson of the Student Union. Please, Danielle, the stage is yours.
Hello, everybody. Dear governors, my name is Danielle Zilber. I am a BA student doubling major in psychology and philosophy and actively serving as the chairwoman of the Student Union of Tel Aviv University for the last couple of months. In many ways, Tel Aviv University is the home for us, the students. We spend many hours on campus, studying, meeting friends, and making connections that will accompany us all throughout the rest of our professional and personal lives. The Student Union is the center of the home called Tel Aviv University, a place where every student that feels a little lost can find help and guidance for the rest of the road ahead. The COVID-19 pandemic affected the way students expect to learn, and the new generation who came to the university is not willing to compromise on the quality of education it gets. Luckily, the university is making tremendous changes to improve and to adapt the new ways we can and should learn. Improving the academic curriculum throughout the LEAD project and the goal to improve overall campus experience while strengthening research and teaching are just some of the projects we are taking part in together with the university to improve future student lives on campus. With all that said, we are in the midst of a complex time, a time that is hard for every citizen in Israel, and only a short week after a military operation which many students took part in as reserve soldiers. Also vibrantly present in students' life in Israel is the financial struggle which affects our ability to study. Almost 2/3 of students in the university are working during their years of studying to afford housing and living, and from those who don't, 70% are not working because they cannot integrate work with their demanding studies. The student union works long and hard to help students overcome those struggles and to help them succeed in their studies, providing in high quality, enriching campus experience, starting from scholarships that include social activism, through operating mental strength courses for students on campus, and of course supporting social clubs and groups that build social frameworks for the variety of students that we have here on campus. Our daily work is focused both on current campus experience and on future students' experience in the university itself. We believe in enriching the lives of the students by providing opportunities for networking and skill developments that will assist them in their future careers. We strive to help students develop skills beyond the classroom, which will serve them well in their personal and professional lives. It is our belief that higher education is not just a means to an end, but it's a transformative experience which has the potential to shape and enrich students' lives for years to come. We must create an environment that enables us to encourage research, critical thinking, and creativity, to encourage the students to learn and to develop over time, and to face challenges, to seize opportunities. As we move forward, we recognize the challenges that lie ahead. Effective communication and collaboration among students, faculty, and administration are essential to achieve our goals. Only together, we can create an educational atmosphere that seamlessly integrates with social lives and prepares students for their professional lives to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. We now turn to the second part of this plenary, a panel on the following topic: Tel Aviv University, a bridge between Israel and the Jewish diaspora. I am pleased once again to invite Ms. Dafna Meitar-Nechmad, who will invite our panelists to the stage. You're getting so many steps on your app just from coming up and down to the stage today. Yeah.
Save me some gym time. So, why did we choose the topic of Tau as a bridge between Israel and diaspora for this plenary? For many reasons. First of all, our Board of Governors is made up of representatives from across the globe. And it isn't a given that philanthropists from one country donate to organizations in another country, unless maybe it is their alma mater. The Jewish people are an exception in this sense, as Jews from all over the world were active partners before, during, and after the establishment of the State of Israel 75 years ago. Looking at current times as well as what's up ahead, we ask ourselves, how can we secure this crucial relationship and pass it on to our children and their children? This issue is particularly important considering the growing criticism of Israel among diaspora Jews and the decline in Israel's standing among the younger generation of the world Jewry. Or, put it more simply, what does our university have to offer the Jews of the world? Again, there are numerous answers. Tau includes all different groups that make up the Jewish people in 2023. Veteran Israelis, new immigrants, Ashkenazi, Sephardi Jews, religious, secular, and makes it a point to be a home for all non-Jews Israelis. Tau encourages dialogue and understanding among all these diverse groups. Tau is Israel in its innovative best, something Jews around the world can take pride in. And Tau is a place through which any Jewish person from Argentina or from Canada, from France or from Australia can make a real impact on Israeli society and on Israel's contributions to the world. Our excellent panelists are here to discuss this challenge faced by the university, how to remain relevant and continue to nurture long-lasting and meaningful ties with our fellow Jews abroad. I am pleased to invite to the stage Mr. Natan Sharansky, who I believe needs no introduction. But to those of you who came from out of space, I'll mention that Natan Sharansky is a former prisoner of Zion, a former minister in the 4 Israeli governments, and a former chair of the executive of the Jewish Agency. Today, he is chairing the advisory board of CAM, Combat Anti-Semitism Movement, and the proud grandfather of 8. Please, welcome. Our Dr. Anita Friedman, Vice Chair of the Board of Governors of Tel Aviv University, Tau Global Campaign Chair, who among her other many roles serves as the Koret Foundation President of the Board of Trustees, the Executive Director of JFCS, Jewish Family and Children's Services of San Francisco Bay Area, and a board member of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee known as AIPAC. Ms. Joanna Landau, founder and chair of the board of Vibe Israel, co-writer of the new book named Ethical Tribing, about future of Israel's image in the world, and no less important, Joanna is a 4th generation of the Porter family, long-time extremely generous supporters of Tau. And last but not least, Ambassador Ido Aharoni, our moderator and an expert on its own right on our topic, former Israeli Consul General in New York, founder of the Brand Israel program, Tau governor, a lecturer at the university's Kohler School of Management, and he is the host of Tau Unbound, the official English language podcast of Tel Aviv University. Ido, the baton is yours.
So when Dafna was introducing me, my immediate reaction was, no, I'll join you. Let me just open the session from here. First of all, as a proud graduate of Tel Aviv University, I'm a product of this university. My entire family, my siblings, my children, my son is attending the Tisch School right now. So on behalf of all of us, I just want to thank you. We don't take this for granted, that people come from all over the world to support this great university. And this great university, and this is exactly ties into the subject matter of today's discussion, Tel Aviv University means something. You know why? Because Tel Aviv, the city of Tel Aviv, and my father's uncle, Shmuel HaKohen Yochananov, was one of the original 60 founders of the city of Tel Aviv in 1909. City of Tel Aviv is the ultimate creation of Zionism. The ultimate creation of Zionism. And today, when you look at Israel as a brand, and here we have people in this panel all heavily invested in the success of Israel as a brand, especially Joanna, who will tell you about her life work. When you look at the success of Israel today, and Israel is a miracle by any standard, Tel Aviv as the hub of creativity and innovation is the main engine that drives Israel forward. There's no question about it. And Tel Aviv University is at the pinnacle of this effort. This is why it's so important that you're all here, that you're all supportive. To set the context to my first question to our esteemed panelists. You know, Zionism, as much as we would like to think it was a very popular movement, but Zionism, the yearning of the Jewish people for self-determination, to have their own national homeland, was not a big hit in the beginning. And I would argue that even today, we could do better. Between mid-19th century until 1924, when the Americans introduced a piece of legislation known as the Johnson-Reed Immigration Act that put an end to immigration of Eastern European Jews, mostly to North America, US and Canada, but also to other places like South Africa. About 2.2 million Jews left Eastern Europe and settled all over the world. Only a handful of them came to this place. Only a handful of them came to this place, including my family, settled in Jerusalem in 1870. They came from what is today known as Uzbekistan, the Jews of Bukhara. And here we are today celebrating 75 years. Israel is a regional power. Again, as I mentioned before, a major engine on a global scale of innovation and creativity in all walks of life, not only in high tech. Don't make that mistake. Famed Hollywood producer Steve Tisch, who won 6 Academy Awards for Forrest Gump, put his name on our film school not just because of technology, because Israeli creativity is across the board. On the dance floor, on the big screen, in the kitchen, wherever you go, and of course in the laboratory, in the army. So my first question to our panelists is this. Based on this description that I just shared with you, how do we here at Tel Aviv University define our target audience? When we talk about Jewish diaspora, as our able chairwoman described, who are we talking about? Are we talking about Jews that we recognize only according to the Orthodox halacha? Are we talking about Jews that we recognize according to the more inclusive law of return? Are we talking about a subjective definition of being Jewish? We know that there are many people that are connected to Jewish families through marriage, and I know that because I'm married to an American who has 6 siblings, and many of them married non-Jews, and we have nieces and nephews that are not halachically Jewish, but they feel very strongly connected to Judaism and to Israel. So the first question that I have is, what is the definition that our esteemed panelists have when it comes to Tel Aviv University as a bridge to diaspora Jewry? And I'd like to start with Anita first.
Is this on? This microphone's on, yeah? Good, good. So this is getting very close to the who was a Jew question. You know, you're talking about specifically who's interested in Tel Aviv University or who's a Jew?
For the purposes of Tel Aviv
Yeah,
University,
right.
what is our target audience?
Yeah, who's our target audience? Well, people who identify with being Jewish, you know. This is such a big question. You know, we've been grappling with this issue for, 3,500 years. So we asked this question of ourselves, and it's a critical question. I think we all have thoughts about it with regard to the university, because I'm very involved with thinking on behalf of the university about who wants to be involved, who identifies with being Jewish, who sees Tel Aviv University as a project of the Jewish people and wants to be involved. So we ask this question all the time. And I'm very glad to be here talking about this issue with this esteemed group, with my friend Natan, with all of you. Do you have time for a quick story? Can I give you a quick story?
Of course, we're here to hear stories.
So we had a similar question in San Francisco about the future of the Jewish community and the parting of the ways between Israel and the diaspora and involvement in Jewish institutions. So I was asked to speak on this subject in San Francisco. So just a quick story, because I see all of you here, and it's wonderful that you stayed and that you're here, and we're getting ready for lunch. God bless you. So I was invited to talk about a similar topic, and it was at a synagogue in San Francisco, and it was a rainy night, and it was very cold, and I had to find the synagogue. I had to drive there. I was having a hard time finding it. Finally, I got to the synagogue where I was going to make a presentation similar to this, and I go into the social hall, and there's one person there. So I said, look, you know, I spent a lot of time preparing this presentation. Do you mind staying? So, well, she was a wonderful audience. She asked intelligent questions. She laughed at all my jokes. And when I finished, she gave me a standing ovation. So I went up to her afterwards and I said, I wanted to throw my arms around her. I said, thank you so much for staying. You know, listen, if there's ever anything I can do for you, let me know. And she said, well, as a matter of fact, there is. You see, I'm the second speaker. So you can only imagine how happy I am to see all of you here. Thank you. So it's a therapeutic kind of a thing for me. Tel Aviv University I find to be very appealing to the Jewish community in the United States because it stands for everything that the Jewish people stand for. Innovation, the Zionism, building the Jewish state. It's a project of the Jewish people. It has something for everyone. And I think it also does a really good job of development, involving people, finding ways for people to get involved, including people either as students or as donors or as teachers, learners. But I think that you know, we face really big challenges right now because there is a serious parting of the ways between the diaspora and Israel. And that's something I think we all need to attend to. So I'll let other people answer and then we can talk more.
Of course, and I'd like to turn to Dafna. You're a well-known civic leader in Israel, and of course, as the chairperson of the Board of Governors, please share with us your view. What is your definition of our target audience?
So, to be optimistic, everyone. Why everyone? Because, you know, first and foremost, philanthropists, Jewish philanthropists already put their money where their heart is. Of course, they are our target because it's obvious. Sometimes we feel that we fight over certain potential donors with other universities and hospitals and so on. But I think that the birthright experience showed that also people that never visited Israel, never maybe thought about Israel, were convinced to come here and hear us out. Sometimes they like us more, sometimes less, but I think that the experience of coming here stayed with them. Because sometimes I'm in New York and someone hears that I'm Israeli, and he says, oh, how can I go into Birthright? And my friends went, and it's so wonderful. And I'm talking about younger people, and which are the toughest audience. Joanna is the expert, not me. But I think that's why I said everyone, because that we are not selling Bible books. We are selling adventure. We are selling I think that what we have here to offer is very wide. And it's a marketing challenge. But it's not only someone who defines himself as Zionist necessarily.
And I think that's a very important distinction that you made. Joanna, we met many, many years ago through your grandmother. And I remember our first conversation was about how people relate to Israel, diaspora Jewry. And one of the things that I think caught your attention, that really influenced your path in life, is the revelation that where people stand politically does not necessarily predict their behavior when it comes to Israel. In other words, people can say, yes, I support your policies. Yes, go into Gaza. I support that. That doesn't mean that they're going to invest in Israel or give money to Israel or celebrate Israeli culture. And when we discovered that, I think Joanna was fascinated by that discovery, and that led to your path and your book, Ethical Tribing, which you brought a copy with here. So tell us about your definition. What have you discovered?
Thank you. He's been very humble. He basically introduced me to what had became my life's passion, which is about how do we tell Israel's story, how do we market and brand Israel, and my focus is on the next generation. So thank you to Ido, I can say it here. You know, when Zionism was established, there were two, I think, major objectives. One was to save the Jewish people, provide them a home, a refuge, which was a very practical thing. And the second was a visionary idea. Herzl said that Zionism doesn't end when the state will be established. He said it's an infinite ideal. And he wasn't a religious man, but he thought that we could all aspire to become a state of perfection when it comes to morality and spirituality. Now, I don't think that any country can attain those levels, but what I do think is that we need to offer a universal offering when we're talking about anything that's coming out of Israel, for two reasons. One is that Tel Aviv University really does represent something on a global scale. I just sent yesterday to Ido this amazing statistic that just came out as if it was especially for this panel, but the most graduates from a university from anywhere around the world in the United States who are responsible for unicorn companies, meaning a valuation of over $1 billion, come from 4 or 5 universities from Israel, and Tel Aviv is right at the top there. So Tel Aviv University is contributing to the success of the United States and therefore to the success of the Jewish people in the United States and of course the success of Israel. And I think that if we have a universal value, we can say, okay, here we go, we've got a great university, but we also have something that the Jewish people, the next generation, can want to be associated with, can want to be attracted to. It gives them something to be proud of rather than something they have to explain. And I think those two things are absolutely crucial. And just like you do when you start a company, you decide who your target audience is. And because Ido is such a great marketing guy, this is his first question. We sometimes don't ask ourselves. And our target audience, we're talking about going into many years into the future. We need to give them value. It has to be Jewish, but it also has to be universal.
And I totally agree with that. For far too long, the State of Israel, official State of Israel, targeted its entire marketing efforts on the people that agreed with our position, meaning we were preaching to our own choir for decades. And that leads me to our esteemed member of this panel, Natan. Natan, you're not only an iconic figure in Jewish life, but you're also the embodiment of the resilience and the perseverance of our people. And you have a unique position because you grew up obviously on the other side of the Iron Curtain, but you managed to get out of there and you managed to build a career and have a real presence and influence in the Jewish state. You became the chairman of the Jewish Agency. You have a unique perspective. Share with us your wisdom on this issue.
Okay, thank you. But because of this perspective, it's very difficult for me to speak what is the audience of Tel Aviv University. I'll speak what is our audience. As you said, what is Jewish people? For me, everybody who feels, she or he, that they are part of this unique, interesting journey of Jewish people through 1,000 years. Everybody who doesn't feel that he or she is observer or writer or critic or judge of this journey, but the participant. I think he or she is Jewish. They are part of our people. Now, who of them are Zionists? Yes, Herzl spoke about Jewish state as a shelter, as a defense for Jewish people. But he also was absolutely unbelievably predicted the creation of Jewish state. But he also made some mistake believing that when Israel will be created, practically every Jew in the world or will make Aliyah or will be assimilated. And by the way, he had no problem with this. It's fair choice. So we know it didn't happen, but we also know that people today, as a part of their Jewish identity, is their strong connection to Israel. So I would say Zionist is the one who understands, realizes, feels that important part of his or her identity is connection with the state of Israel. And as birthrights was mentioned, birthrights wasn't a Zionist project. It was invented by people who wanted to live in Israel or who wanted their children to go in Israel. And I was in this process of creation when some crazy rich American Jews came and said, look, we cannot guarantee that our grandchildren will be Jewish, but we found out that if you send our children to Israel, even for a short trip, the chances are growing. So Israel became like a tool to keep your Jewishness. So it's very important, I would say, Zionist function, not only to gather exiles, but to strengthen Jews all over the world. So then, who is not our audience? Who are not Zionists? I would say that, unfortunately, at the times of crisis, we have another letter of some people who are saying that we have nothing to do with this colonialist, racist enterprise called Israel. And I spoke to one of the rabbis, she signed one of these letters, and she told me, for us, as American Jews, now is a big challenge. We have to build our identity without Israel. For 1,000 years, Jews were building their identity without Israel. And now we have again, why do we have to be connected to this thing that we so much against? Let's try to build our identity without Jewish identity, without Israel. Well, I believe it's absolutely doomed to failure. But it's important to know that there are people among us who don't consider that important part of their Jewish identity is Israel. So they're not our audience. All the rest are.
And thank you for that. And I think that's a beautiful segue to my next question, which is really your assessment of what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses of that connection with Israel. Because we do know that back in the day, and I think that Anita, you were right to mention birthright, and Natan, you also mentioned birthright. Birthright is a game changer. I want you to understand that. I say this as someone who spent 30 years in the field, all in America. It's a game changer because it's responsible for a revolution in the mindset of diaspora Jewry. If for their parents and their grandparents, Israel existed in the context of a problem, Israel was the needy brother or sister that needed our help, then this generation is looking at Israel in the context of an opportunity and not necessarily as a problem. And the opportunity is, of course, to fulfill their dreams, to build a career, to find a significant other. It can be anything. But the opportunity is there, and Tel Aviv University really is at the forefront of that opportunity. So my next question is assessment of the strengths and the weaknesses of what we have to offer in that relationship. I'd like to start with you, Joanna.
So I think we all are aware that there's a certain weakness going on right now, but I'm going to sidestep that issue because I'm going to hope together with everyone else in the room that what we're dealing with in Israel right now is temporary, and we will remain optimistic that Israel will continue to be this bastion of creativity and innovation and so on. So I'm not going to refer to that. I think the weakness and the strength is the same, and I'm looking particularly at the relationship building with the next generation that's coming out of Israel. That relationship building has relied way too heavily for far too long on some rich American who will come along and do a fabulous project like Birthright. And there are discussions about having a reverse birthright, and there are attempts to start doing that. We, the Israeli people, and I sound English, but I've lived in Israel for most of my life, none of my friends know much about what it's like to live as a Jew outside of Israel. They don't know, they don't care much. For them, just like for their, some of their kids, not particularly interested in Israel, here in Israel, we're not that aware and we don't have enough knowledge about what goes on over there. And I think that that is a major, major, major risk to the future of the state of Israel and Jewish peoplehood. We need the advocates, we need the supporters, we need the people who love Israel. They're not coming from us. They're coming from the next generation. So that's the risk. But the opportunity is exactly the same. Today there are tools that we can all use, primarily social media and channels of communication, to get incredible messages out about what Israel and in Israel Tel Aviv University can offer. And ultimately, we heard the chairwoman of the student union talking about how they don't compromise about something. By definition, that is the next generation. This is a generation, the millennials, the Gen Z, they don't compromise. If a brand needs to change their name from Uncle Ben to something else that will fit their values, the brand will change their name because they won't buy the product. And the same should be said for Israel. Israel has to do so much better to show the young Jews outside why they should want to connect. It's all about giving value. And the great news is that Israel and Tel Aviv University have amazing value to offer. But we don't market it enough. We don't focus on the strengths. We tend to focus on the weaknesses. If we balance it out, I think we'll be in a better place.
Dafna?
So, those of you who know me, I'm thinking philanthropy for the last 20 years, so maybe I refer a little bit to that. Still today, a lot of money is coming from Jews around the world, and especially from America. We're talking about 10 billion shekels a year. The total is the total raised in Israel, and about 2/3 of the donations raised generally. I'm not talking now Tel Aviv University, unfortunately, Ariel. We are not talking yet in billions per year, but maybe one day. So I do see commitment. I talked before, and maybe I start with some positive angle, that I believe that this is a statement. It's not just feeling sorry for a poor relative. I think this is a strong commitment. We saw the Rameziano family for the fourth generation coming here, and so proud of their donation. And other people, I can mention many families here in the audience and generally, that they feel really connected. And I think even the Kadar family, who lives in America, and now have more the second and third generation. They come here annually for their prize, and this is a wonderful connection, a long-time relationship. We talked about endowment for the university. If we be able to have endowment, the people who gave endowment 30 years ago still come here to see what the endowment did, even if they don't continue to invest in the university. So this is a tie relationship. We can use this as a tool for a long time relationship with the university. And I just wanted to mention generally, not a particular university. Since the inauguration of Israel, I believe that although the anti-Semitism, and maybe, which is a big threat, we hear about the rise of anti-Semitism worldwide, but we don't have, maybe with the exception of Iran, it's not an official policy of any state these days. And I think, I'm not an expert in the field, but I guess that every Jew feel better with the existence of Israel, somewhere in his heart, even if he doesn't plan to move to make Aliyah. So we are in this together, and we should get along.
Natan.
Well, I would say that from my point, we can divide the periods of our relations between Israel and Jews of diaspora in three stages. First, as you mentioned, in the early stage of Zionism, both sides were ignoring one another. For most of the Jews of the world, Zionism didn't exist. The times of Bund, great Hasidic movements, Reformed and conservative movement, who cared about this small group of crazy people who decided that we all have to move to Palestine? And vice versa. Zionists were speaking about the future of the Jewish people as if they were representing everybody. Then, of course, after the tragedy of Holocaust, everybody became Zionists. Almost everybody. But then the relations became, from both parts, we will save you. American Jews will not permit to them to destroy our poor relative, our beloved Israel. Israelis, we are saving you because you're going to disappear anyway, so before you disappear, at least give your money to us before you disappear. And that was more or less this indulgence from both sides to the other. That's how, by the way, Sakhnut Jewish Agency was built in the 50s, 60s on this mutual indulgence very successfully. That when I entered in the 70s, the 80s when I was released, but in the 70s from Moscow, it was so clear that there are two sides. One, Zionist side, who says, you will disappear anyway, so we are saving Jewish people. And Diaspora side, who was saying, we will save you, don't be afraid, we will save you. So the Jews were saving one another. And now, then we entered, which was good, by the way, which gave feeling of mutual importance. And then we're in the third stage, when we need you. Both sides, well, American Jews and Birthrights was only the first project among many, when you see that Israel is a tool for our survival. And on the other hand, Israel says, after all these successes, we are a startup nation. Our economy at this moment is more successful than any other free world economy. Social experiment of absorbing millions, there is nothing to compare. And we are the only state that all the time there is a question whether we have legitimate right to exist, or we are kind of colonial remnant that has to disappear. And we find out that we need world Jewry because they are those who we don't have to convince that we have a right to exist. So this stage of mutual discovery that we need one another is a very good one, but it also means that we are much more intimately connected. And when you're intimately connected, then suddenly the problems of your character are important for us. American Jews really didn't care for many years whether there is non-Orthodox prayer at the kotel or not. Well, we are saving them. Let them do whatever they like. But in this new stage, when we are sending our children to Israel to become better Jews, that they will not have an opportunity to have our synagogue service at the kotel, that's already our problem. On the other hand, as long as American Jews were all important for us to give their money, okay, so they don't really understand our needs. But when they are our partners in the struggle for legitimacy, and they don't understand that we cannot have proportional answer because we keep 2 million people in the shelters and we have to answer, and they're saying, no, don't kill one Palestinian for keeping 1 million Jews in the shelters. That's our problem. So it's the unique opportunities for these relations, but it's unique risk. And only by making big effort to understand better the other, we can succeed.
Before I turn this over to Anita, I just wanted to say that we have a tendency to focus heavily on American Jewry, and for obvious reasons, it's the largest, wealthiest, and so on. But the Jewish experience in other countries, and we have here the Honorable Erwin Kotler from Canada, a dear friend, the Canadian experience regarding Zionism has been very different. I think that the South African case, Australian, of course, English, French, and so on. Anita, you have a very unique perspective because you're also involved with AIPAC, so you're taking care of Israel's needs in the other department.
Right. So I just want to follow up, and then I will talk about the politics a bit too of what you said. Because now we're in a third stage of the relationship, and it's a relationship. What makes a relationship work, whether it's your marriage or your relationship with your friends or your children, is that you need to be able to see the world through the other person's eyes. If you can see the world through the other person's eyes, you're going to have a good relationship. If you don't, your marriage may not work. We are now in a situation where we have to learn to see the world through each other's eyes. I'll talk a little bit from my perspective as a leader in the Jewish community, especially in the United States. On the political side, I spent a lot of time in Congress. I spent a lot of time with the administration, with senators, with Congress people. I bring leaders from the American Jewish community to Israel regularly. There's very strong support for Israel politically in the United States, even with some movement on the part of some of the extremes mostly the Democratic Party. But the relationship is strong. It's a mutual relationship. They benefit in the United States from the relationship with Israel and vice versa, in intelligence and cyber and economics, militarily, security. That, I think, actually is the good news, even if there are some tensions that have always existed in the U.S.-Israel relationship. That my biggest concern as a leader in the Jewish community is the challenge to the leadership of the Jewish community now, the worldwide Jewish community, to understand that we have to understand better how to develop and maintain our relationship. The Jewish community's challenge is a little different. The biggest challenge in the American Jewish community, briefly, is that the next generation has a hard time answering the question of why be Jewish. If you have children, you have grandchildren, and you're not ultra-Orthodox, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. Why be Jewish? Our responsibility is to help people understand why it's meaningful to be Jewish and how Israel is a part of the Jewish story. On the Israeli side, with the exception of some of the leadership, as you said, it's not that whole much, like what's the connection here, you know? They don't understand what American Judaism looks like, what Diaspora Judaism looks like. We need to work on creating opportunities for that connection to take place in the next generation. Otherwise, we will part ways. And one of the things we know about Jewish history is that when we part ways and we're divided, bad things happen to us. Every 100 years, the Jews have some kind of civil war. So we should learn from that experience, right? I think we're moving in the right direction, which brings us to Tel Aviv University, because it creates opportunities. Young people want to come here. They find it meaningful to come here. A lot of Americans now are coming here, young people, because it's a resume building opportunity. They want to come here because it's an opportunity for them to develop their careers like they go to another country or an internship in America. Tel Aviv University provides that opportunity. And as a foundation, one of our priorities is to build connections between our major institutions and Israel. And that's why a lot of our funding goes to developing relationships between Tel Aviv University and American institution and creating those kinds of bridge building opportunities. Both communities, the leadership around the world, in Israel, in the United States, have to understand that imperative.
And I couldn't agree with you more. We live in the age of information overload, and information overload is a real problem for, in marketing in general, especially in the marketing of places, cities, and nations, because when people are overwhelmed with too much information, most of it is irrelevant, they not only develop anxiety, they're also overwhelmed, and as a result, they're looking for simple answers to highly complex solutions. Without going into politics, that's how you end up with Brexit, for example. Because the most searched word the day after Brexit in England was Brexit, meaning people voted and then they went to read about what is it that they voted about. I mean, and that's a true story. Now, before I jump into the next question, a little story, because it illustrates the importance of the next question. They tell the story about this person who developed a mystical belief in the power of the number 8. Why? Because this person was born on August 8th. So everything this person did had something to do with the number 8. For example, he married his 8th girlfriend. He bought an apartment on 8th Avenue. To be accurate, 888 8th Avenue on the 8th floor. And you get the point. Everything had something to do with the number 8. One day, he goes to the races. And he sees on the board that in lane number 8, there's a horse racing by the name of Numero Ocho. So he says to himself, that's my lucky day. Like in Seinfeld, like Kramer, that's my lucky day. So he goes to ticket window number 8, exactly at 8 minutes to 8, and he bets his entire life savings on Numero Ocho. And sure enough, the horse finished 8th. Now, the point of the story is that, you can trust on your luck only so far. At one point, you have to realize that change is the only permanent feature in our lives. So my question to our panelists, and we'll go from Joanna to Dafna to Anita to Natan, we don't have much time. If you had to change something in that relationship between Tau and Diaspora Jewry, what would you change, what would you add, what would you modify? Joanna.
Always makes me laugh with his funny and surprising jokes. I think that the change is not just for Tau. I think there needs to be a change of mindset in the entire community. There's a reason why, sorry, shameless plug, wrote the book about how to connect the next generation to Israel and the digital era. We all recognize there's a problem. We all know how we feel about it. But then Anita said the most important thing is, what does the audience feel about it? What do they think? We should be coming to what they want and giving them what they need. We actually have an entire chapter called Radical Empathy, which comes from a different field completely, but if we can radically empathize with Tel Aviv University's audience, then we would understand that as a university, they're seeking out all the things that the competitors are offering, and we have the added bonus of, our own capabilities, Tel Aviv's own capabilities, and the Jewish/Israel piece. I think that the mindset needs to be, and this is the big shift, we don't need to put being Jewish or Israel at the forefront of the product that we're offering that's coming from Israel. We put the product at the forefront. We compare Tel Aviv University to Harvard, Cambridge, where I went, other great universities, see what they're missing, know what we can offer, have really, really great marketing, and add to that layer, where relevant, the aspects relating to the Jewish community. And I'm sure, actually, I think that Tel Aviv does a great job with their marketing to the international community, to the non-Jewish world, and I would actually take a little bit of that to the Jewish world as well. Young Jewish kids are not necessarily going to want to go to Tel Aviv University because it's a Jewish university or it's in the state of Israel. We need to give them good reason, and we have a ton of good reasons to give. So that's the mindset that we need to change if we want to ensure that the next generation stays connected.
And I would add to that, based on my experience as a lecturer here, I've had several non-Jewish students. So Tel Aviv University is attractive to non-Jews as well. Dafna.
I would improve the relationship with alumni. I think that alumni, we have plenty of alumni worldwide, and we are already doing a lot of efforts on this front. And I think they are terrific ambassadors, and all these entrepreneurs that made a lot of money could potentially become our donors. So that's my small addition.
Thank you.
I think that we need to inspire young people to find meaning in being Jewish. I think that's on us as leadership of Jewish institutions throughout the world. I think that's true in Israel too. I think, again, Israelis need to learn how to talk to especially American Jews, but diaspora Jews. And I think Americans in the United States need to figure out how to inspire people to want to be involved. The opportunities here at Tel Aviv University are very meaningful. I mean, the experience on campus, the learning, the resume building, the international experience that Tel Aviv University offers is extraordinarily compelling. But the Jewish aspect of it is not a minor point, because we're competing with many universities around the entire world. So why here? What's special about this place? And I think we need to grapple with that issue and see things in an entirely new way. And that is on the leadership to address that issue and to focus everything on bridge building.
Well, again, my experience of looking on the world through the eyes of Tel Aviv University is very limited. So I'll tell, but I spent time on more than 100 universities all over the world, and of course, Israeli universities dealing with the problem of anti-Semitism and so on. And every young person, definitely every young Jew, is dreaming about Tikkun Olam, to do something to make the world better. If he's not dreaming about it, probably he's not Jewish by any definition. So the challenge is to show that you need a lot of energy to change the world. And there is no other source of this energy but your identity, your country, your people. That is the beginning of changing the world. And at the same time, to show to all those passionate nationalists, also our people, that all our national passion can have a meaning only if it brings more freedom to people, makes people's life more interesting, more deep. So this connection between Jewish and democratic, which we are arguing all the time, which is more important? To give you an answer that it's not which is more important, but there is some very deep connection. And only by being connected to your people, your country, you really can make this world a great place and be very progressive, be very influential and so on. And only by believing deeply in the freedom and democracy and human rights, you really succeed to promote our national ideas. That's the most important thing for every university, but of course, first of all, for Tel Aviv University.
Well, we managed, believe it or not, to finish on time. If I can just say one word of gratitude to our panelists, and I just would like to, if I can, summarize everything we've heard from really, and I think it was a very deep, I'm sorry, President Porat? Sure, of course. I mean, if I will allow him, he's the president. Please, you want to come up to the podium?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you all. It was very insightful and interesting to hear what you have said. One of you has his own experience. Just a very quick remark. So a question I asked myself, actually for the first time at office, what Tel Aviv University could do about bridging or creating a better relationship with the diaspora, how we could also maybe take part in combating anti-Semitism. This is another way, to establish better relationship with the diaspora. Also, the BDS is an issue. And the question I asked myself, what an active role we could play. So you have mentioned rightly the international school, Milet Shamir and Maureen, the head of the international school are here with us. And this is definitely one way, bringing more and more Jewish, of course, also non-Jewish students to the international school. This is one way that you have mentioned. Another one is establishing centers like the Koret Center that we established a year ago for Jewish civilization with Anu, and which focuses, among other things, on relationship with the diaspora. And of course, there is the new Erwin Kotler Center that we established a few days ago, which is focused on combating anti-Semitism, combating BDS and racism more generally, and also that's something that you, Joanna, have mentioned, making the understanding of Israel better in the world, which eventually also affects, or at least has the potential to affect. But still, I ask myself, I believe that there won't be enough time to discuss, it's just a question for food for thought, is whether we could also be even more active as a university, in addition to the activities I've just described, to better connect with the diaspora. So here is very quickly an idea that I got from someone that I know, almost all of you know, which is a former ambassador, Israeli ambassador to US, Salai Meridor, which is also a friend of mine. I know him from my military service. So what Salai Meridor suggested to me a while ago, that maybe we should have a program at the university that we could bring Jewish leaders. So not those people that we should convince them that Israel is a good idea and that they should support Israel. On the contrary, to bring people from Jewish communities, like leaders, young or less young leaders, to bring them to Tel Aviv University, to have a program for them for a semester or even for more than a semester, and actually to equip them with the tools necessary to perform their role in their Jewish communities. While getting back to their communities, they will be better able to be not only ambassadors of the university and of the state of Israel, but in particular to be able to combat anti-Semitism, actually to take care of those roles which are so important for the Jewish community in US, but also in other countries. So generally, I think it's a kind of, for me, it's at least a full of thought, whether it's applicable or not, but it really bothers not only me, but all my friends, what could we do more in addition to what we have already done in order to accomplish this so important goal. Last point, these days, how could I complete, even a short speech without saying, and especially when we have this, crisis in Israel, the internal social crisis, I think that many of us understand more than before, we Israelis understand more than before, not only from the university perspective, but from the Israeli perspective, how much the Jewish world, the Jewish communities all over the world are so important for us. So if some of us forgot for a moment, thought that we could do without the Jewish community, I think this is a moment in which we should better understand how it's important for us, and reminding to us that the Jewish state, that's something I've said before, that the Jewish state is not only the home of the Israelis. It's in the same way, the same extent, it's also the home of the Jewish people. We are now the residents, we are Israelis, are the current residents living in Israel, but it is the home of the Jewish people. And this is something that we should remember forever.
Thank you. Thank you so much, President Porat. And before we conclude, when you turned on the light, I see that we have Itamar Rabinovich, former president, former ambassador here. I'd like to acknowledge his presence. A dear friend of mine and also a mentor of mine. If I can conclude what we just heard from Natan, from Anita, from Dafna, from Joanna, it's important to be right, but it's no less important to be attractive. And when I say attractive, it means to be creative, to be innovative, and yes, to be funny. And Israel can be funny. And Israel can be a lot of fun. Thank you, President Porat, for your encouraging word. And thank you all panelists for participating. Have a great Shabbat.
Don't go. Thank you, panelists. It was fascinating. This has been a great conversation this morning. And with that, we have arrived at the close of the second plenary. Before we continue, I have a couple of announcements regarding upcoming events. Please mark your calendars. The next U.S. conference will be in Miami, Florida, in the second week of February 2024. Be in touch with your local Friends Association for details. And as you've all heard, our 2024 Board of Governors will be held from the 26th of May to the 2nd of June. We now invite you all to join us for a festive lunch reception, followed by a ceremony celebrating the inauguration of the Colton Center for Autoimmunity. Later this evening, you are also invited to a Tau family Shabbat dinner with your fellow governors, with transportation leaving from the Hilton Hotel. We hope you will join us for both these exciting events. Last but not least, we also look forward to seeing you all at the street party on the Tau campus on Saturday evening, celebrating both Israel's 75th birthday and the completion of Tau's 10-year global campaign. Thank you all.